sarcasm sharper than a sword, insults that could kill at 20 paces. Blackadder was a comedy weaponized. Every sneer, every cunning plan, and disastrous scheme built a world where history collapsed under pure wit. But behind the laughs was the chaos of accidents you'd never believe. These are 15 weird facts about Blackadder that prove the madness off-screen was just as unforgettable as the genius on-screen. Before Blackadder became a household name, the BBC filmed a pilot in 1982, but it was never broadcast and has since disappeared into the archives. Only a handful of stills survive that show a scruffier Rowan Atkinson and an early version of Baldric. Fans have spent decades hunting for a copy, but the pilot remains one of British comedy's holy grails. Some say it was scrapped because it didn't match the sharper tone of later series. Others claim it's still sitting in a BBC vault collecting dust. Either way, the Blackadder you know almost started life in a very different form. In the first series, Baldric wasn't the lovable idiot we know today. He was cunning. In fact, his famous line, "I have a cunning plan," originally meant something clever. It was only later that the joke flipped, making his cunning plans increasingly absurd and useless. This change came partly from Tony Robinson's delivery, which made the writers realise that a bumbling Baldric was funnier than a clever one. By the time of Blackadder 2, his stupidity was the punchline, and history's most useless servant was born. Without that shift, we might never have gotten lines about turnip wine or slug-flavoured coffee. The debut series of Blackadder looked expensive, but that was the problem. Shot largely on location with big sets, costumes and horses, it went massively over budget. Critics weren't impressed either. Many thought it was too slow and too silly. The BBC considered dropping the show entirely. Luckily, writer Richard Curtis and newcomer Ben Elton retooled the format, cutting costs and sharpening the dialogue. The result was Blackadder 2 that came with a studio audience, tighter scripts, and a nastier, funnier Edmund. That reboot saved the show, turning a near disaster into one of British comedy's greatest comebacks. Miranda Richardson's Queenie in Blackadder 2 is one of TV's most outrageous monarchs, but the real Elizabeth I probably wouldn't have been flattered. Historians pointed out that Richardson's Queen bore little resemblance to the real ruler, who was famously shrewd and politically astute. Instead, the show turned her into a spoiled child prone to tantrums. Richardson herself admitted she based Queenie's behaviour on a mischievous toddler. Viewers loved it, but the BBC received some sniffy complaints from traditionalists who felt history was being mocked, which of course was the point of Blackadder in the first place. Today, it's impossible to imagine Blackadder without Hugh Laurie as Prince George or Lieutenant George. But Laurie wasn't the producer's first choice. He only got the audition thanks to his comedy partner Stephen Fry, who recommended him. Laurie was actually in America when called to audition, and he famously filmed his tape in a hotel bathroom because the lighting was better. That improvised audition won him the role and launched one of the most enduring comedy double acts of the 1980s and 90s. Rowan Atkinson's sneering delivery of insults often sounded like it belonged on a Shakespearean stage. That wasn't an accident. Many Blackadder lines were deliberately written in Shakespearean rhythm, using archaic vocabulary mixed with absurd imagery. Writers Richard Curtis and Ben Elton admitted they wanted Edmund to sound like the bastard child of Shakespeare and Monty Python. The result was dialogue that was both elevated and ridiculous, allowing Atkinson to hurl insults like poetry. No wonder English teachers still sneak Blackadder clips into their classrooms. It's half comedy, half cultural lesson. Some of Blackadder's funniest physical gags were actually dangerous. Rowan Atkinson once performed a horse riding scene in full armour, despite having no riding experience. During filming, he nearly toppled off and sent the crew into panic. On another occasion, Tony Robinson burned his hand during a kitchen scene when a prop candle flared unexpectedly. In the pre-CGI era, much of the chaos was done for real, with actors risking injury for laughs. It gave the show its raw energy, but left plenty of bruises behind the scenes. Over its 4 series, Blackadder featured a surprising number of guest stars who later became famous. Robbie Coltrane, Stephen Fry, Rick Mayall, and even a young Patsy Byrne before becoming Nursey all made appearances. Some roles were tiny, others unforgettable, like Mayall's Lord Flashheart, who stole every scene he entered. Flashheart was so popular that fans demanded his return in later series. He did come back and louder and ruder than ever. This cemented his status as one of Blackadder's most bizarre side characters. While Blackadder was never meant to be accurate history, the writers often slipped in real events. Blackadder III referenced genuine political scandals, while Blackadder Goes Forth used authentic trench slang and conditions from World War I. Teachers noticed and started showing episodes in schools as a way to make history engaging. Some students ended up learning as much about the French Revolution or the Elizabethan court from Edmund Blackadder as they did from textbooks. It wasn't always factually correct, but it sparked curiosity, and that was exactly what the writers wanted. The finale of Blackadder Goes Forth remains one of the most powerful endings in sitcom history. What began as comedy ended with the characters charging over the top into gunfire, fading into a field of poppies. The cast had only rehearsed the charge once, and the raw emotion you see on screen is real. Viewers were stunned. A sitcom had just delivered one of the most haunting depictions of war on television. Teachers, critics, and even veterans praised it as both respectful and devastating. For many, it was the moment Blackadder transcended comedy. Atkinson's rubbery expressions were central to Blackadder's humour, but few knew they came at a cost. During long shoots, he would tense his face so much that he suffered from muscle strain. He once joked that his eyebrows did more work than the rest of the cast combined. To ease the pain, he'd stretch his face between takes, and that would lead to sometimes scaring extras who thought he was pulling grotesque expressions for fun. In reality, it was part of his job to make misery look effortless. Tony Robinson's Baldrick became so iconic that the word cunning plan entered the English language. Robinson himself admitted that strangers shouted it at him daily for decades. At one point, he even released a cookbook called the Baldrick's Cunning Cookbook, filled with deliberately disgusting recipes like slug fritters and turnip surprise. Beyond comedy, Robinson later reinvented himself as a respected historian and TV presenter, but to many fans, he'll always be the grubby sidekick with a plan doomed to fail. In the late 1980s, American producers toyed with remaking Blackadder for US audiences. A pilot was shot, with Rowan Atkinson reprising his role but surrounded by an American cast. The humour didn't translate, and sadly, the show never went to series. Only fragments survive today, but those who've seen it describe it as awkward and lifeless without the original British wit. It's a reminder that some comedy doesn't travel well, and that Blackadder's sarcasm was uniquely British. Blackadder's elaborate costumes looked authentic, but they were torture to wear. Heavy fabrics left actors sweating under studio lights, and the Elizabethan ruffs cut into their necks. Hugh Laurie once joked that he nearly passed out filming in a wool overcoat during a summer heatwave. Yet, the discomfort added realism. The cast looked genuinely miserable, which suited their characters perfectly. Comedy gold often came from genuine suffering, making the performances all the more convincing. Though the series ended in 1989, Blackadder never truly died. The cast reunited for specials, charity sketches, and even Millennium projects. Every time rumours of a new series surface, fans go wild, though Rowan Atkinson insists it's unlikely. Still, Blackadder remains in constant reruns, quoted in classrooms, pubs, and offices. It's seeped into British culture as deeply as Shakespeare or Monty Python. For a show born out of a nearly cancelled first series, that's the ultimate irony, that Edmund Blackadder finally won by refusing to go away. At the end of the day, Blackadder was a cultural lightning bolt. Strange production choices and a streak of historical madness turned it into one of Britain's most enduring comedies. If you enjoyed these weird facts about Blackadder, hit like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments which series you would like to hear about next. Until next time, stick to your cunning plans.